Oh, nice. No problems. First time.
Easy as that. Easy as that.
There you go. You become a pro now, Saf.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I know it's really difficult to press a button, so I'm glad I'm getting good at it. Welcome back, everyone. Episode number
15.
Yeah.
Come on, man. You're not as prepared as you say you are.
I don't even know, man. I don't know. I don't really keep up.
Episode 15.
Episode 15. I'm joined by my co-host Sully, as always, and by popular demand, Mr. Ishan, who's also obviously he's one of our good friends, also the husband of Com, who we had on
Saf froze.
Have I froze?
Yeah, you're back now.
Oh, okay, good. That's good. Yes. So husband of Com, one of our good friends, Mr. Ishan.
Welcome.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Well, first of all, Saf, you did mention that there was going to be a drum roll of some sort. I haven't heard that yet, so I'm still waiting for that one. And just to let everyone know, Saf did actually message me, and he sent me a recording of him doing a drum roll. I can't believe you've done that. But you know what? I feel privileged to be joined by you, and also the first ever. This is the first ever Bengali MasterChef professional. You know, Burhan. Honestly, I feel privileged. Bro.
What can I say? My chefing days are up and running now.
Do you know what? I feel happy and sad at the same time, because I'm happy that I'm doing this. You know, I feel like I should be interviewing you. But second of all, you've never cooked me anything.
What do you mean?
What's that all about?
You never came to my house. Come to my house. I cook you food.
I'm come to your restaurant, not your house.
What restaurant?
Oh yeah,
COVID,
sorry.
You know what?
COVID,
the listeners right now, yeah, they'll be hella confused. Right? They will have no idea what Ishan's talking about.
Basically, don't worry, I'll let them know. Basically, we think that Sully looks like Burhan from MasterChef. If you don't know what Burhan looks like, just have a quick Google. Just type.
Which one's Burhan?
Come up.
You know, when Saf does the editing for this, right?
I don't do it,
Sully, when you do the Burhan, when you do the editing for this, I want you to be a picture of Burhan on this when I talk about him, because you know, I honestly, I feel privileged.
You know what it is? Hopefully we could get more listeners off the back of that, because that guy is somewhat famous.
You know what our problem is? That we most people listen to this as opposed to watch it, I think. But
right,
when we put the clip on Insta,
yeah,
Sully, you've got a lot of work to do with that one.
I do all the hard stuff, Saf. What do you do?
I'll bring myself. That's our USP. It's me.
All right, if you say so.
He brings himself in his hat.
Bro, the question after that you should have asked is, okay, well, what's so unique about you? And then I would have got stuck.
Stuff in a hat.
Stuff in a hat. There you go. Yeah, so what have you been up to? What have you guys been doing?
Nothing much, mate. I don't know whether you know, I've got a little toddler. Keeps me quite busy. So she started nursery this week.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, it was kind of weird, you know. Just we were sitting in the house, and for the first time, she done from 12 to 6. Okay, we were sitting there twiddling our thumbs, thinking it's so quiet. It's so quiet in this house. Someone needs to do something. And Gorman's sitting there. I'm sitting there thinking, can we just go pick her up? Can we? It's so weird. And then, you know what? She's home and she's causing an absolute mess everywhere, throwing stuff about. She's crying that she's not getting her fruit shoot on time. You know, all the important stuff. You know, all the important stuff.
After her dad, then.
Yeah, very important. Fruit shoot, very important.
To be fair, she does look a lot like you, actually.
Yeah,
thank God. Thank God.
That's insulting to Com, man.
Yeah, man. How can you do that? Your own wife.
Mate, it was you.
Why are we causing arguments here between me and my wife? What's going on?
It was Sully.
I feel like you baited me into that. You baited me into that. Why am I holding a pen? It's like I'm taking notes.
Yeah, it's because of the whole Zoom thing, isn't it? I do exactly the same. But yeah, man. What else have you been doing, Ish? Obviously, I haven't seen you. When did I last see you?
I can't even remember the last time we saw Ishan.
It was when we went to that.
Probably at my wedding, Saf. about 3 years ago.
It was the park. The park. You remember the park?
I wasn't at the park.
Yes.
So for me, it's even longer.
I know it's been a while, hasn't it? It's been so long. This
Yeah.
whole sort of lockdown 3.0 and all that sort of stuff. It's hard to get out, and we're all stuck at home having to do this virtually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of feels weird. It feels like we usually have conversations all the time, and if before, like, if I wanted to go see yourself or for something, I'd just jump in the car and go. You know, so weird.
Yeah, we'd hit
I
up
can't do
like
that anymore.
Spice Hut or something, get some kebabs and wings.
We were
Do you
just.
know what we were talking about Spice Hut. It's well overdue. You know, I'm thinking that I might even break the COVID rule and just go. It's
Mate,
worth it. 200 quid fine.
We'll cut this bit out, Ishan. Don't worry. We'll cut it out.
No, I think, look, if we go, it's 200 quid. You know,
We'll split that between us.
it's worth it, definitely.
It's like a parking fine.
Well, I think the problem is you can't really split £200. It'd probably be £200 each.
Probably, actually.
Wouldn't
It's
it?
true.
I filled in Ish about how we go the one next door to Spice Hut.
Oh, PFC. Yeah. We're giving them free shout-outs, free advertising.
Yeah, I know, man. Yeah. And do you know what's crazy, actually, is because on the platform that we use to host the podcast, you can see kind of roughly where people are listening from. And I know that a lot of our listener population are very heavy in that area.
Like East London.
A lot of people probably know what we're talking about, actually.
I think we've just boosted their sales for today.
To be honest, I think they probably already knew that the place existed, perhaps. I don't know.
But we could have gave them a little reminder. Do you know what I mean? They could have forgot about it and they heard us talking about it. They're like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. Let's hit up Spice Up today.
That's it. Oh, I'm so jealous, man. I can't even lie, man. I'm so jealous.
I'm jealous of those people that can literally, like, 10, 15-minute drive, just go, get it, come back.
Yeah. Honestly.
Well, hold on a minute, guys. We could probably make it there in an hour. Should we call this a bit short and just go for the Spice Hut?
Okay.
Suggestion?
I'm up.
Yeah.
I'm up for it.
Let's put this on hold and let's come back.
You know what? We could probably record it in the car.
We could.
The amount of conversations we have in the car as well.
Oh, yeah. I've seen, you know, Alhan.
Yeah.
Recorded podcasts in his car before. So,
Do you mean Burhan or Alhan?
Oh,
There's too many hands here. What's going on?
Sully, what have you been doing? What have you been up to?
More or less just the same, mate. Just
It was weird asking you that question because I speak to you every day, obviously.
Yeah.
I think, like, for the sake of conversation.
Do you know what I have been doing? That's something new that I don't think I've told you. I started like cooking a little bit.
You told me you made some pasta the other day.
Yeah, I made some pasta.
We know you've been cooking. You're a professional master chef. No. Stop bringing it up.
I'm just saying, that's what Saf asked me the question, what have I been doing? I've been cooking, so. But yeah, I've been making pasta quite a bit.
What kind of pasta?
I made green pesto pasta the other day.
Yeah.
I found some recipe online, just tried that. And then I've bought some red pesto yesterday, so I'm probably gonna make some red pesto pasta.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've learned one recipe. So I can't cook. I can't, like, it's an impossible task for me. But I've learned one recipe. And Ish, for Com, actually, this might be really nice. So you basically get like all different types of like vegetables, like think like zucchinis, peppers, asparagus, cherry tomatoes, stuff like that. Yeah. Really simple. Get some butter in a pan, melt it, put some mustard and thyme in, melt it, mix it all up, and you basically baste the vegetables with it. And literally you can like grill it or put it in the oven for like 20 minutes. Honestly, like best thing I've ever had. It's so nice.
You know what? That actually does sound really good. I might take on to steal that one from you.
But I learned it from some guy on YouTube who's got like some cooking show. I learned it from him. But
YouTube is the way forward. You need anything, you just go on YouTube.
Yeah,
you know, when I was a kid, I swear, you know, did you ever get problems like with your Xbox? You get like the red rings of death and stuff like that. Do you remember
that? Yeah. I got the red eye of death on my PS3.
Oh,
so basically, like, I used to go on YouTube and look at videos on how to fix it, and it used to require you to do things like soldering, getting a soldering gun and things like that. And I kid you not, I followed it step by step, and I managed to fix like my Xbox. When my like Nintendo DS broke when I was a kid, managed to fix that. Like YouTube is the way forward.
Did you actually get a soldering gun?
Yeah, I bought one off eBay.
Oh, mad.
Yeah, you could do anything off YouTube.
It's actually true. You can imagine, like, you can learn how to speak a new language or learn how to play a musical instrument, or all from like watching YouTube. It's crazy, isn't it, actually? But do you know what I found really annoying about it now is what any video you watch is just full of adverts.
Oh,
Yeah,
the double
that's
adverts
annoying.
at the beginning.
So many adverts. The most of the at the beginning, it's not too bad. It's like the ones that come like midway through the video. They're the ones that annoy me a lot.
Do you know what's even worse? When you have a child and you have to wait for an advert, and she's sitting there crying like mad, trying to get the next video going along, or those midway adverts. She'll just pick up the phone and throw it.
Wow.
I know. I've already gone through 2 iPhones.
Oh,
It's not it's an expensive game. Expensive game.
Okay, so you better put her to work because she's got some damages to pay for.
my insurance claims are pretty high.
You're how old is she now? She must be almost 2, right? Or just over 1
Yep, she is 16 months.
month. You should say to her, look, Navia, you're coming up to 2 years old now. It's about time you started contributing.
Oh, I was gonna have that conversation at 2. You know, she didn't start paying the way. To be honest, it's getting ridiculous. But I've got to be honest. If I ask her to start paying the way, then Gumma's going to ask me to start paying my way. So let's not do that.
Yeah, you don't want to open up those doors.
You got to pick your battles wisely.
Yeah.
Ish, what's the obviously having a daughter? What would you say the hardest thing is?
Hardest thing.
Yeah, how has it affected your life? Like, what's the most? Yeah, like the hardest thing that's happened.
Do you know what? I'd say the hardest thing is just my mental state. My mental state. It's. I never really before focused on my mental well-being. So you know when having a kid, you go through so many different types of changes, and you have to adapt. And once you feel like you've mastered it, they change again. So you never really truly master the process. It's an ever-going changing process. So you know, for me, it was definitely my mindset. You know, when the child's born, that first night that they come home, is probably the scariest night of your life. You know, for me, she was constantly crying, constantly. She always wanted to go to Gumal. Gumal was the only person that could soothe her. And for me, that was kind of like, you know, you kind of feel like the spare part here because you're not part of the feeding process. You know, she was breastfeeding at the time, so she wasn't part of the feeding process. You're not part of the sleeping process. All you are is the guy who basically changes the nappy if you can, and throws it away and gets the bag ready for the next day. So you know, for me, having all of these different changes going on in my life, and then at the same time, you know, watching my wife, because everyone goes through a different stage post pregnancy, you know, and it's crazy when you can see the changes happening to your partner. I think that is the most scariest point. And from a mental well-being state, you kind of question a lot of things. And you question yourself, you know, whether you're the right fit for the job. You know, on the first night when Navia was crying so much, I questioned myself. I'm not cut out for this. I'm not cut out to be the dad I thought I was going to be. You know, the one that you have in your mind when you first realize that you're going to be a father. So it was a difficult process. It was a difficult process to mentally overcome those challenges. And yeah, I would say that to answer your question, that's probably the hardest thing to deal with, is going through that. Is going through those mental changes. And I was reading up actually, and it's really common to feel that, you know, that way. And 1 in 3 fathers are actually worried about their mental health as soon as the child is born. So that's a lot. That's a large cohort of fathers.
That is, I think with with like obviously having a child and things like that, I think a lot of people tend to think about the mother a lot. Obviously, both are important, and both the mother and the father go through different things. But I feel like perhaps the father is maybe forgotten about a little bit neglected. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, those stats, like you said, 1 in 3 is quite a lot.
It's scary.
Yeah,
it's scary to know, because you've got to also think that, you know, from the moment your child's born, I think in the UK it's pretty standard. You get 2 weeks paternity leave, right? Within that 2 weeks, for me anyway, the child, Navia, was completely dependent on Kuma. So I didn't really get much time in that 2 weeks, and then I had to go back to work. You get back to back on calls and meetings and all that sort of thing, and you know, you're never fully at work because you're going back. All you want to do is to come home and to play with Navia or to see what she's doing. So I'd come home at like 6-7 o'clock, and by that time Navia would probably be asleep, or she'd be, you know, most of the time is sleeping, to be honest, or feeding. You know, so you don't really get to spend much time with a newborn, or I didn't. And so yeah, it was a difficult time. But again, something that you have to change, adapt, learn to. And it's a steep learning curve.
Yeah, I think it's as we were saying, it's difficult for the fathers, and I'm thinking from the perspective of obviously kind of Asians. Like obviously we're seen to be the providers within our culture, and if you think back to like our parents, like they were always working. We didn't really see them, but we don't really think about it from their perspective. Like they're out there working for their family. Like I said, they come home and you know, their baby's asleep. They don't get to spend too much time with them. So it is difficult with like all the sacrifices they have to make. And sometimes we forget it.
I think there's a big difference in sort of the generational gap. So for example, if I look at my mum and dad, you know, they've given me an amazing life. They've given me everything that I've wanted, and they've dedicated their whole life to their children. But that comes at a sacrifice. You know, my parents were both very hardworking, and they basically work their backside off to provide for their children. Didn't have any time to think about their mental state. Didn't have any time to think about themselves, and that in itself has a lot of implications on parents. And I kind of think about it now. You know, people are more openly speaking about mental health. People are more openly speaking about well-being, and workplaces are now taking this into consideration when looking at their workforce. So it's very common now to speak about your mental well-being. Although some people may not be so comfortable with it, it's important to know that there is certainly places out there that you can speak to if you are going through this. And more specifically for fathers, there's definitely a lot of places that you can go to have conversations around this to support you through the tough time. But yeah, it's very weird because my parents didn't have this sort of didn't have the time to think about this from a mental state. But for me, it's really important to think about my mental well-being, and to also make sure that, you know, my wife is also in a good mental state as well. So yeah, it's a weird topic, to be honest. It's weird how my parents don't sort of have much information on that area, but for me, it's, you know, it's imperative
priority,
to
isn't
always
it?
talk about it. Yeah. Definitely. And me and Komal always talk about that. We always talk about it day in, day out. Is how you're feeling today. You know, is it a bad day? Is it a good day? How's your energy? Are you low on energy? Are you, you know, is it what can we do? Is it maybe listening to some music, doing a bit of meditation, maybe going out for a run, or going out and doing something that's different from the day to day, which gives you a chance to reset. I think that's really important for fathers, mothers, or not just fathers and mothers, anyone out there, you know, going through this COVID experience. You know, you need to have your little reset. It doesn't matter what it is. Some people going to the gym feel like they need to work out and do that. Some people want to meditate, go for walks, sit there and watch YouTube. whatever it is, or maybe listen to like a podcast, maybe like something like Native Outcast, I think it's called. Bit of PR there for you.
I've heard they're not very good. But...
Heard there's a guy there with a dodgy hat and one from like MasterChef.
I've heard they like had some guest on, like apparently he just spoke a load of crap.
Really?
Yeah.
Must have been Como. She was on before episode 14.
It was a guy. It was some guy. I think his name was like
some Indian guy.
Ihan?
Maybe Ihan?
No. Burhan.
Do you feel, because obviously we know you personally and you're kind of guy who shoulders responsibility and takes responsibility in all aspects quite seriously. Do you think, or do you feel that it's your responsibility? Obviously, we're talking about mental health. Do you think it's your responsibility to make sure the rest of the people in your house are at a good level of mental health?
Yeah, most certainly. I think it's sorry guys, back on. I think it's imperative that everyone is aware of everyone's mental health, but also, it's key that you give people space whenever they need space, right? You don't need to always be up in their face.
Yeah.
But I think it's contagious. If someone is feeling low, if someone is not feeling in the best sort of mindset, it's definitely contagious in the house, and I can feel it straight away. Gomal can feel it. Everyone can feel it. If, for example, my mum or my dad or even me or Gomal are not in the greatest of moods, everyone can feel it. And so I think I take it upon myself, and so does everyone else, to be mindful and also respectful of everyone, everyone's mindset.
Yeah, I think it's important as well within our culture, because you touched upon it before, Ish, how our parents and perhaps their generation, basically, like our parents, our grandparents, etc., they didn't have the time to think about their mental state. They were too busy focusing on building a future for us, as their children. So we almost have a responsibility to check up on them, because they don't know what mental health is. They don't know the concept of mental health. So I think it's important for all of us to do that, to check up on them, and also understand if they act out in a certain way, if they get angry, they get upset, to give them that space, like you said, because they don't understand it, but we do. So we do need to look out for them and have that responsibility, for sure.
Also, though,
and
they need to be. There's an element of education required there. I know, particularly in our cultures, there's this like unspoken rule of, I am older than you, which means I know more than you do about absolutely everything. Right? And I think it's our responsibility to tell them that that's actually incorrect, but do it in a nice way. And it's going to be like an uphill battle, because they never want to accept it. But it is true, right? Because we're more educated, we know more about certain things. Like, for example, not with everything though. Like, let's take parenting. Obviously, we were talking about it. Ish, obviously, your parents know a lot more about parenting than you and your wife do, of course, because they've been doing it for a long time. They've done it multiple times, obviously, with you, your siblings, etc. So certain things, of course, yes, they know more. But there are certain things like mental health, which they most definitely do not. And I think part of the battle is actually trying to talk them around into that, before even understanding it, actually explaining to them that it actually exists.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And that's part of it, but they'll kind of back that off and just say like, oh, well, in my day, there wasn't really a thing, and I don't really believe in it, or I don't think that that's the case, or whatever. So I think that's the problem.
And I think when you come to that sort of, when you're having conversations with your parents around mental well-being, and also some of the reactions that they have, I say it's best to kind of lead by an example, so people sort of imitate that behavior, that trait. So for example, if someone was to shout in my house and be angry, it's okay to be angry. It's fine. It's an emotion. Perfectly normal. And if they're going to shout and be angry, the worst thing to do is obviously fight fire with fire. And I'm not saying all the time, everyone's complete zen in this house. No one argues with anyone. That's not the case at all. But what we are is we are definitely more consciously aware of how we react to other people's normal traits. So if my dad is going to behave in a certain way, we understand that's my dad's personality and that's the way he is. And you just have to be respectful of that. And once you start showing respect to people's emotions and giving them the space, giving them the time, giving them the ability to vent as well, that's really important, to let people vent if they want to vent. And to remove the emotional part of that, and to really sort of dig deeper and to put yourself into their shoes to find out how they're feeling at that time, you get a bit more of a deeper understanding of where they're currently at, and then how you can help to facilitate them to put them in a better space.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's what's important.
We touched on that in one of our previous podcasts that we did, and I think, Zully, we said something along the lines of how if you're a friend to someone who's suffering from mental health problems, what are some of the things you can do to help them? And I think one of the things that we said was, which is basically kind of what you just said, Ish, which was just listen to the problem. Keep your mouth shut, because it don't always be like, oh yeah, that happened to me one time when I done da-da-da. Don't make it about you, which I think relates to kind of what you just said. Like, if they need to vent, just let them and listen to what they're saying, because it puts you to understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, I think another important thing you said is, Ishan, like letting them feel out their emotions. Like, everyone reacts in different ways. Everyone has different emotions. They show emotions in different ways, but we need to understand that everyone's different. Like, for example, when I get angry, I just go really quiet. I wouldn't say anything. I'm not really much of a shouter, for example. But whereas someone else, what's so funny?
Well, this is actually a really serious topic, but I'm struggling to give a straight face, because this has been
I think I know what this is about.
This has been a topic of conversation for a long, long time, and I'm glad you addressed the elephant in the room. Okay. We would love to hear, Solly, and I'm switching over to the interviewer role now. We would love to hear what you do when you get angry, because me and Saf are sitting here scratching our heads thinking, why is this boy never ever we've never seen you get angry. We've never even seen you get frustrated. Like, the amounts of time, Solly, I've known you for years, and the places that we worked together before, it wasn't always like the easiest places to work. And even then, I would never hear you throw any sort of tantrum, frustration, or anything. So what do you do? I mean, we have a theory. We have a theory of what you do.
All right, let me hear your theory first.
No. He asked you the question first.
All right, true.
Yeah.
All right.
There we go.
Okay, just to start off with, you will never see me frustrated. You would never see me angry. And I'll make sure of it. But to tell you the truth though, like, I don't, obviously everyone gets angry, do you know what I mean? But when I do, I tend to remove myself from a situation, because, like, external factors affects the way you work. Like, sometimes if you're angry, right, and then you're with someone, whether it's a family member, friend, for example, they might react in a way that's not very helpful to you. So it's better to be, I think, in that instance, be on your own and say nothing. For me personally, like, religion's quite a big thing. It's we know you shouldn't be angry within our religion. If you've got nothing to say, then you shouldn't really say it. You should just be quiet, remain silent. So that's what I do, to be honest. I just remain silent until my head is clear, basically. And I think it's part of my nature as well.
You say obviously you just kind of do your own thing until your head becomes clear, but what do you do to make your head clear?
For me personally, it's prayer, which is very similar to perhaps meditation, because I know, Ishan, you're quite into meditation and stuff. So for me, it's prayer, which in itself, I suppose, acts as a form of meditation. So I'd say that's what I do, basically.
Yeah, And one of the things that I usually do when I'm feeling frustrated, or if I'm feeling a lot of anxiety about a certain topic, is I tend to sort of differentiate myself from the actual issue. And one of the good things that I had some therapy before, and part of that therapy was with someone who does NLP, so neuro linguistic practice. And what he told me, and this is a great technique for anyone who's feeling anxious or feeling a bit angry or frustrated, but it's think of your thoughts as a cloud. So think of your thoughts as clouds which are completely separate from you as a person. So you're laying there on the floor, you see your frustrations above you as clouds, and you see them coming and then going. So they pass, they come and then they go. You don't associate yourself with that. You just basically think of it as a cloud which is coming and then going. And then really you know when you look at it in that manner, that you're separating yourself from the issue, from the frustration, from the anxiety that you're feeling. You then almost are not that person anymore. You know, you're then looking at it from a completely different viewpoint, and you get a lot of answers when you look at it from a different viewpoint. And once you have those answers, you tend to find that what you're feeling anxious or nervous or angry about is something that can be controlled by you consciously. You know, when you're getting angry, when you're throwing frustrations, or when you're doing something which you shouldn't be doing, okay, it's perfectly fine to do that, but you have to understand that you're behaving subconsciously. You need to take back control of how you're behaving. Once you have that control, you are then able to control everything that you feel. And from an outward perspective, you're so much easier to speak to with other people once you remove those quite strong emotions that you do have. But again, it's not something that happens overnight. You know, this is something that you practice. You keep practicing, whether it's through prayer, whether it's through meditation. It doesn't matter what your exercise is, as long as you have a daily practice. You will most certainly be in a better position to deal with these sorts of situations.
I think one thing that's really helped me is like, if there's a situation that's made you angry, for example, or anxious or whatever, I think like a question I ask myself is, am I going to feel the same way about this situation in a day or a month or 3 months or 4 months? If the answer is no, then I think it's easier to detach yourself from that anger.
Yeah.
I think where it's like, yeah, I'm still going to be angry about this in like 5 years' time, then I think your anger could be justified perhaps. But if it's something like, oh, you know, tomorrow I'm not going to feel this way about this situation. Like, for example, like you're driving along, someone just pulls out in front of you. For that split second, you're going to be very angry, right? And probably start beeping your horn, hand gestures, certain words and phrases are now coming out. Think to yourself, am I going to be angry about this person pulling out in front of me this time tomorrow? The answer is probably no, right? So it's easier to detach yourself from that. So if I'm not going to feel about this way about this tomorrow, I don't necessarily need to feel this way about it now.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point there. And I think you and Ishan actually made the same kind of similar point, and that is being conscious. When you're conscious of the fact that you're angry or whatever emotion you're in, you know how to react to it. So obviously Ishan spoke about what he did, and what you spoke about just now is thinking ahead. Like you're angry, you know you're angry. You think to yourself in the future, am I going to react the same way or feel the same way in like a day or two, whatever. I think the key is, if you're conscious of it, you need to figure out how it's the best way for yourself to come out of that situation and to solve that situation.
I think like typically the stuff that we get emotional about, realistically, are not things that are going to be affecting us in a week's time from now, or from when it happens. So in which case, it's not worth putting yourself through that short-term pressure if it's not going to be anything that's long-term. You know what I'm saying? If that kind of makes sense. But yeah.
But it's all phases, right? It's all phases. So, you know, you have to just think with a phase, there's a beginning and an end. So whether it's a short phase, long phase, doesn't matter what it is. All you have to realize is that it's a phase, and it will have an end at some point. So That's how I look at it, is compartmentalize everything.
Ish, what's obviously you spoke about like the difficulties of initially of being a parent.
Mm.
How did your luck? Because for everyone listening, Ish is young, man. Like he's still well. I kind of suppose we all kind of are not young, but like we're all
I'm getting a few white hairs, actually, to be honest.
We're in like our mid-20s.
We're in our mid-20s. Obviously, in today's world and society, that's still seen as young, right? So, what was the transition like for you of being a young person doing things that young people do on a normal everyday life to then being married, then being a parent? What was that transition like for you in terms of behavioral changes, emotional changes, changes in things that you like doing? Because, for example, I can imagine that the things you like doing now are not the things you liked doing necessarily, or the same as that you like doing when you were like 22 or 21.
Mm.
So how has that kind of changed?
Well, I think going back to the end part of your question, from 22 to where I am now, my life is completely different. What I was doing 22-year-old, I was probably partying in some nightclub somewhere, having a good time, not really having money responsibilities, and not really caring about what's going to happen the next day. And I think, again, very important phase in my life. I'm glad I went through that phase. I'm glad I had the experience to know what that's like. But as you kind of go through life, you kind of you're constantly changing. You're constantly changing, and this is, again, brings you back to the point where your interests change, your responsibilities change, what you want out of life changes. And for me, I think I went through a massive change in 2014 when I decided to go back to university. At the same time, my mum was having some real health issues, and her life was changing as well. My parents both had their business, and they were in the process of closing down their business because of obviously the changes that happened to my mum's health. And then to add to that, I also had a job. I got a new job. And so it was at that time when I realized that I need to change. I desperately need to change the way that I am behaving, because I needed to give enough time to each of those topics. And there was not one of those topics that was more important than each other. Every single hour of my day was taken up at that point. Whether it was at university, I had to take I had to let lecturers know that I was getting I was getting everything recorded, and I was catching up on the lessons in the evening. My mum, obviously, she was going through the dialysis process, so I was supporting her at that time and ensuring that we're making the right decisions for what she was about to go on. With the business, we were at the point of winding it down, so we had to make sure that we still were able to financially benefit from that even after the business closed down. So there was that complexity there. And then my new job, I had to understand how retail banking worked, how I was going to get all the training done and all of that sort of thing. So everything was very, very important. And it was at that time I learned how to basically break topics down into small bite-sized pieces, and dedicate enough time to each one and to manage my time efficiently. And throughout that process, I kind of realized that I can take on more than what I'm doing now. And I learned so many new and different things throughout that process, and each one of them has sort of shaped me to be the person I am now. But I'm constantly evolving and constantly changing. So, being a young person, I'm 28 years old, I'm married with a kid. Most of my friends at the moment, they're either still out partying, or they're going traveling, or they're sort of talking to people, getting to know their other halves and all that sort of thing. And I'm sort of a bit further on. And me and Gom will always have the conversation. We're thinking, wow, are we moving a bit too quickly? You know, are we not making full use of our time at the moment? But I guess, you know, people do things at different times. Everyone's on their own timeline, you know, and
that's kind of what I meant as well. When I said, like, you know, when you thought to yourself, where you and Com have that conversation of, are we doing things too quickly? That's literally exactly what I was saying, in the sense where 40 years ago or 50 years ago, if you were 28 and you weren't married and you didn't have a child, someone would be like, come on guys, get a move on now, right? Because this, whatever. But now it's flipped so much where it's like, you're 28 married with a child, everyone's like, you're still really young. So
yeah,
that's kind of what I was saying, like, and I can't put my finger on it, Ish, but obviously I've known you for
10 plus years, Saf.
What, be over 10 years? That is absolutely mental. Like, I can't comprehend actually how that time has passed. But it's a strange one, because you're still the same Ishan that I met at the time, but you're not. Like, you are, but you're not. Like, you're that same guy with like those same kind of like core characteristics, if that makes sense. But you have had to, and obviously you touched on it, like you're changing all the time and evolving all the time. Like, you've done a lot, or had a lot of life changes in a short space of time. So I say all of that to say this, like, what was that? Is that transition difficult? Because you went from being, let's say, straight out of college, to uni. You didn't like doing it at that time. You wanted to focus on other things. So you did that. Then you went to, obviously, as you mentioned there, your mum became ill. You got a new job, and you decided that you would actually like to try your hand at university again. So you did all of those things. Then you completed that. Then you got another new job, got married, had a child, and now we're here. That's a lot. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Short.
Yeah, in a short amount, like all of that happened, in a short amount of time. And so you know each other obviously like 10 years. I've known British and like 6 years or something like that, 5, 6 maybe. But like even in that short amount of time, like a lot's happened.
So
definitely.
What was that transition like? Like, was it difficult? Did you have to do things you didn't want to do, but you had to do it? Did you discover things that you now like doing that you didn't like doing before that time?
You know, so no, 100% understand. So, you know, so when I was 22, and I'm not saying that we moved quickly with me and Gorman and obviously everything that we've done, but I've known Gorman for same, like, you know, eight years now, and we've been in a relationship for 8 years. So you know, we knew a lot about each other, and were with each other for 6 years before we got married. So what really helped me through this process, and again, you know, at 22 I was partying. I didn't want to change, and I didn't want to come to this lifestyle where I was all serious and had to think about responsibilities and kids and marriage. If someone said kids and marriage to me, I'd be like, whoa, you need to calm down. You know, we're not going to be doing that for a long time. I want to be partying and I'd be there for a very long time before I choose to settle down. But when you meet someone, and again, Gomal is like my mentor. She is my mentor. So when I met Gomal, from the first day I met her, she was always very inspirational, studying law, wanted to be achieving a lot of great things in life. And there's a saying, you know, you become the people that you are around. Okay, and when you're around someone like Gomal, who's very sort of driven in what she wants to do from a career perspective, and obviously knows what she wants from life, you kind of can't help but to go with that as well, and it's infectious. So for me, when going back to university, I saw Gomal, she was doing so well. She never got anything less than a first. So for me, I never wanted anything less than a first. I would not settle for anything less than a first, because that is the only thing that I knew at that time. Gomal got it, so I wanted to have it. So for me, I found the passion of going back into studying. I before I even went to university, I don't think I got anything higher than a B, like in my GCSE. I think I got a 1B, and that was out of luck anyway. So, you know, I was going into these lectures and seminars, and I was coming out with nothing less than 70% and upwards. So for me, it was that passion to go back. I found the need to go back and the want to go back. And when I was sitting in my lectures, I was genuinely very interested in it. It was going in like a sponge. Literally everything went in. And so for me, it was that change for that particular instance came because I was a product of my environment. And then moving on, obviously, forward to getting a job, you know, I always wanted to work in banking. I was very interested in the financial services part of it, and I still am in financial services. So for me, it was a case of putting that into practice and getting a job and making something out of it rather than just talking about it. And so then I got my first job at TSB. You know, I couldn't at that point give that up, because that was so important to me. I've always wanted that. And I knew that I could definitely do the university and work at the same time. And then obviously life happens. You know, my mum, she got ill. My parents there to wind down their business, and that is the part of life. You know, and you know, I had to at that point manage and cope with that change. And that doesn't happen to everyone at the age of 20, 23 or 24 or 25. Yeah, that doesn't happen to everyone. And so I was forced to change, and forced to be able to work in that sort of manner. And then it became a sort of a way of life. And I no longer found the drinking, the clubbing, all of that sort of stuff interesting anymore, because I never done it. It wasn't a day-to-day thing for me. I never thought about it. I was too busy focused on this stuff. So that was a phase in my life that ended, but still very important. And then it got to a point where, you know, me and Gomal got our families involved, and we had conversations, and then we were planning on getting married. And so whilst it sounds, when you're saying it, it sounds like a lot crammed in a small period of time, it kind of, for me, all fell into place quite nicely, because they were all natural steps going forward, and it was natural steps which I wanted to take on with the person, obviously, that I wanted to be with. So, yeah. You know, and for us, we've always wanted to have children early. Gomal is very career driven, and she realizes that, you know, whilst she has a child, having children early and then being able to focus on careers and also bringing up the child at the same time would probably be an easier decision. And for me, you know, kids was obviously on my plate. Before I had a child, I wanted 11 kids. I wanted 11 kids. I wanted my own cricket team. Everyone was a Patel. And, you know, after I had one, I was like, whoa, I'm definitely not going to have 11 kids. I'm even thinking about, you know, just the one is enough for me. You know, Navia is a bundle of joy, but she does keep you busy.
Cool.
So for me, yes, it was a lot of changes, a lot of life lessons that came from those changes, but they were natural progressions. You know, naturally it all happened.
I think you made a really, really important point there, Ishan, about like natural progression, natural steps. And to a point you made earlier as well, actually, about how everyone has different journeys. Like no one's journey is the same. Everyone has different time frames. Like for some people, 8 years might seem like a long time. For some people, it might seem like a short amount of time. But you have to do what feels natural for you. Like for you, that time you met kind of calm, you got married, your career, everything, looking after your parents, those were natural steps for you. But someone else in another situation will not have that same natural steps. And I think that one of the keys to kind of life in general is just to identify that, like not to compare yourself to other people and the steps that you have.
So And that's something that it's an easy trap to fall into now, because we have access to everyone and what they're doing, how they're living life, more so now over the course of the last probably 10 years than we have ever had in the history of humanity. And that's why places like Instagram or platforms like Instagram do things like, for example, so they have to put like ad things in their caption.
Paid promotion.
You have to make it known that
Mm.
is what you're doing. So it's not like a case of, oh, if I take this mysterious pill that I know absolutely nothing about, maybe I'll become like this. And I've seen something else as well now, where they brought in a rule whereby if you have used any filters to alter the original picture, you have to state it. Like, this isn't for everyone. This is for like influencers and celebrities and people like that. You have to state on the picture that you have altered the original image, and it's stop normal people comparing themselves to people like, I'm just going to throw out like Kim Kardashian, for example, because obviously she's one that people try to emulate a lot. So you don't know, like the photo she's taken, how much that has been changed. It could have been changed so much. You have no idea. And you never know. You just think that this person looks like what I want to look like. And because you don't look like that, you can't look like that. It's impossible for you, because you are you and she is her.
Yeah.
For some people, perhaps they don't just register that, and it takes a real effect on their psyche, basically.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that people are, or the platforms like Instagram are bringing these rules into play, because hopefully it will stop people comparing themselves to other people and feeling down about it. Because think about it, yeah. If you're 27, 28 and you see all these other 27, 28-year-olds on Instagram, they've all got loads of money and nice house, nice car, nice this, nice that. People are thinking to themselves, oh, why don't I have that? But what a lot of people don't contemplate is actually being a 27 or a 28-year-old with a nice big house, a nice bank account and a nice car is not normal. You're not supposed to have that at that age. Not many people are supposed to have that. The ones that do are the fortunate ones. And that's been like that since humanity began. Has it not? It's just now it's more easy that we can see. For example, 100 years ago, those 27, 28-year-olds who have these nice cars and nice this and that were probably the sons and daughters of kings or royalty or from a noble family, right, that were rich and had all these great things at that time. Now, it's very much the same thing. They're born into a lot of things or whatever, or they have a certain something about them which makes them stand out. But I think the key thing to realize is don't feel bad about it, because that's not it's an exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And you know what, I would say comparing yourself to someone who's on a separate journey from themselves or from you, it's not going to give you anything. I mean, what you can do is maybe look to see what they've done and look to emulate some of those behaviors to help put you in the best position on your journey. But yeah, you're completely right. You know, seeing people on social media, seeing people's stories, snapshots of the way that they live their life. You know, you see, oh my God, that person's doing amazing. Why can't I do that? Oh my God, this person's doing this.
I think another thing to remember as well, like people only show the good things, don't they? They never show the bad things. They never show the failures.
Snapshot. It's a snapshot. They don't show you the other 20 pictures that they took, which didn't turn out right. Yeah. They don't show you all of that.
Exactly. And you look at people like, one example of that I think is really great is James Dyson, who invented Dyson vacuum cleaners. He had to build 5,200 prototypes before he found the one that actually worked. Now you see Dyson everywhere. It's a household name. Everyone's got one. And the way I would translate that to today's society is exactly what you just said, Ish. That one picture that looks so amazing. Oh, the girl looks really pretty. The guy looks really hench or muscly or whatever it might be. you haven't seen what it took to get to that level.
Mm.
You just see the result of it. You don't know what it takes to get there. You know what I'm saying? It's like everyone knows Dyson now. It's a company worth billions.
Mm-hmm.
The guy built just contemplate. He built 5,200 prototypes before he found one.
Yeah,
Exactly.
definitely.
So before you start comparing yourselves to other people and their successes, think to yourself, they didn't just wake up one day and all of a sudden they had followers on Instagram and a nice big house and nice cars and this, that. There's a lot that goes behind it. Some is good, some is bad. But you can do that for yourself. You know what I'm saying? You can do it for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You just have to believe you can and use your strengths.
Sure, and everyone's on, as I said, they're on different journeys. So I'm 28, I'm doing what I'm doing. You're 28, you're doing what you're doing, and you're getting the experiences and learnings from whatever you're doing at that time. And I'm getting the same experience or different experiences and learnings what I'm doing. That's not to say that my experiences and learnings are much better than yours.
Yeah.
For you, you're getting what you want out of the situation that you're in at that particular time, and that's great. That's fantastic. And that's your journey, and you shouldn't have to justify that to anyone. You're getting what you want out of that, and that's the most that anyone can ask for.
100%.
And for me as a person, looking at your journey, for example, you guys have done this podcast. This is a great platform for you to put things out there, to speak to someone. Quite a lot of people may not be doing this at the moment, but for you, you're on this journey at the moment. You're putting a lot of content out there and helping people, and I think that's fantastic. And that's you, and that's your journey. That doesn't mean that someone else needs to compare themselves to you. They have their own separate journey, their own separate learnings, their own separate experiences, which they should be very proud of, and they should use those to go on and develop even further.
100%.
Definitely. Ishan, you mentioned Con is like a mentor to you, someone that motivates you to do better. How important is it to surround yourself with people like that motivate you to do better, that act as a mentor? Like how important is that?
It's it's the one thing that changed my life. So from 22 to where I am now, having people that are inspiring you to be the best version of yourself, and I think that's really important, to be the best version of yourself and to do yourself justice. For me, I never knew that I had the potential to get a degree, let alone get a first class degree. I never knew I could do that. I never knew that I had the potential to go get myself a job. I never knew that I had the potential to be a dad. I never knew all these amazing things that I didn't know about myself. And the only reason why I know that is because I surrounded myself with people who had similar sort of aspirations. And so you latch onto that, and I think that's so important for everyone.
Yeah.
Just take a minute, look to see who's around you. If you know yourself, if you're not in the right company, you will definitely know yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
And then just make that change. And you know what? There's a lot of people out there that when you see them, for instance, for example, that I not just call my as my mentor, I also have work mentors as well. I just reach out to them, speak to them, and let them know, look, I'm really interested in what you're doing. I find the way that you work amazing. I would love to sort of spend 5-10 minutes or to book an hour sort of scheduling every month just to spend some time with you and to learn a bit more about what you do and what makes you you. And I think people should do that more often, now more than ever in the virtual space. Go reach out to someone. Doesn't have to be work related. It can be life related or whatever. Go reach out to them, spend some time with them, make them part of your top 5 people, make them part of your community, and you will eventually start following the same paths as these people.
That's one thing I really love about like our friendship group. Like we're all very like-minded. Like I could say quite easily, and you guys have been motivating in many ways. Like with Ishan, obviously I worked with you, Ishan. I worked with Saf. Like we've known each other all for a long time, and I think that's a really good thing about friendship group, is we all have similar ambitions and goals. We're very like-minded. We're always motivating each other, and I think it's so important to have that, because otherwise, like, you're not going to go very far in life you don't.
Definitely. And I think the other thing as well that comes in to play when we're talking about like friendship groups is have people around you who will encourage you, celebrate your success, but like not be
Yes, man.
men. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So, and those are the people that are so rare to find. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. So it's the ones that will, when you've done something really great, right? That will give you a pat on the back and give you that encouragement and make you feel like you have achieved something. You need that. We're human beings, right? We want what's the word?
Validation.
Validation. We need validation as human beings. We need it. But trying to find that person who will give you that validation you need, but not.
He froze, isn't it?
Froze. I'm back. Sorry.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like a cliffhanger with him. He gets right to the last minute and then just freezes. You know, we never get to hear what he's got to say.
So you need those people who will give you that validation you need, but not go over the edge of doing it too much. You still, within that same person who's going to give you that validation, you need that same person who's going to tell you, like, keep you grounded and humble. And trying to find that in one person is difficult enough, let alone in a group of people.
Yeah.
But I would really, really encourage people to try and find that group of people, because when you're talking about life as a whole, which is like what, maybe typically, generally speaking, 70, 80, 90 years, you're going to need it. You're going to need that support system. Sometimes you can't get it from your family, so you're going to have to look to your friends. Sometimes you're not going to get it from your friends, so you have to look to your family. Family, obviously, you can't control. That's why you need to go and find that in your friendship group. You know what I'm saying? And don't be afraid to try and look for it, and don't be afraid to cut out the people that you might count as friends who don't do that.
Yeah, I think that's so important.
It can have a really it has a real impact. It really does. It really has an impact with who you hang around with and how much you hang around with them. And it directly correlates with how you're doing in your life. Trust me, it really does. It really does. And I'm sure you guys can probably even vouch for that, that at one stage of your life when you were doing whatever it was, you were probably with one group of people. Then at another stage of life when you're doing something else, you're probably with another group of people. And you can start seeing like, oh, I used to hang around with such and such at that time. So no wonder I was doing such and such. You know what I'm saying? And you can see it. You can really, really see it. So,
and my friend group, when I was 22 and going further on, you know, it's not completely different to what it is now, but there have been some changes. Have been some changes, and you know what? This is all just a part of the process, and there's an actual term for this. There's an actual term for someone in your friend group which isn't on the same wavelength as you. They're called energy vampires. They're called energy vampires. So, you know, if you've got someone in your friend group who is draining you, or is not adding any value, or if you can't add any value to them, okay, then you know that can be a real tough situation that you're in, and you really need to be reflective at that point, and to be honest with yourself and honest with them.
I think it's important in that instance to be critical, like because you've known someone for X number of years, for a long time, and they're not necessarily adding any value. You have to be straightforward and truthful with yourself. Like, you know, perhaps maybe not, you don't want to cut them out completely, but not being with them too much if they're not going to add any value. Do you know what I mean? It is so important to surround yourself with the right people to move forward, because if you don't, then you're just going to be stuck where you are and not make any progress.
I think
100%.
You have to remember that this is going to sound like really robotic and maybe a little bit like emotionless. We have to remember that everything in life is transactional. Everything. Transactional meaning it's a two-way street, right? If I go to a shop and I pay money for something, I get the product. And that's what it's like with relationships as well. It's not a one-way street where just one person gives. And when I say relationships, I mean with your parents, with your siblings, with your spouse, with your children, with your uncle, with your friends, everyone. Every relationship in life is transactional. If you're the one just giving, think of it as a business. If you always just gave and no one returned any money to you, your business would go bust, right?
Mm.
This is the same with relationships. If you're always giving, eventually you have nothing left to give. That's going to die out. So when you are looking at your relationships, whatever it might be, it has to be a two-way street. Even with Navia, for example, is your daughter. Obviously, yes, you're her father and she's your child, but that's even the what I'm trying to say is a relationship as kind of delicate as that, as a father-daughter relationship, is still transactional in that she is giving you love and happiness and you're giving her a means to be a child and live and feeding her and all of this. Is that not a transaction, right? It is. So
it is. But you when speaking about family, when speaking about even certain friends, partners, there's certain relationships that are transactional, and then for me, there's certain relationships that are unconditional.
Unconditional.
Meaning,
that's a very good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you to a certain extent, and then there's some parts where they're unconditional. So someone like, for example, Navia. Okay, for me, that love is unconditional. She cannot give. If she chooses not to love me at any point in her lifetime, it plays no bearance on my love for her. It's unconditional. So no matter what she does, it will always stay the same, if not more.
Yeah.
So I think that but coming back to the point of friends, and even if I tie this into being a parent, okay, it's so important for you to be mentally conscious, right? And this is why I was saying, look at your top 5 people. Navia is looking at her top 5 people right now. Who is she around? She's around me, Komal, my parents, okay, and Simba the dog, okay.
I'll forget the dog.
But again, we need to create an environment for Navia which allows her to thrive, which allows her to be the person and the best version of her that she could possibly be. And the way that we can do that is to be consciously mindful of the way that we are behaving with each other, and the way that we are creating an environment for ourselves. Because ultimately, that's going to shape her as a person. That's going to shape her as a child when she grows up, and obviously will be with her for the rest of her life. So, coming back to that point, we need to be mindful of who we associate ourselves with, and make sure that we've got the right people around us, that we can add value to them and they can add value to us. Again, the transactional point. But from a family perspective, there is certainly, for me anyway, unconditional love for and unconditional terms for my family members. No matter what they do, I will always be there for them.
Yeah, definitely. Ish, what would you say, right? How long have we been recording? I actually don't have a timer on this one.
Yeah, I was keeping an eye on the clock. I think it's been just over an hour.
Over an hour, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So I was going to ask Ish, like, what are your, like, 3... Because I found increasingly, I feel like we've almost come full circle in terms of, like, community, yeah? So before, people used to get married and have children. By the time 18, 19, 20, married, child, done. Then it went to a time of people were not necessarily that much that way inclined to, like, have a really young family and do all of this, that, and the other. They're focused on their careers. People are marrying later and having children later, which I still think is the case. But increasingly, I see people starting their families earlier, like more and more. I see, like, young people getting married, having children more and more and more. So what have you learned about yourself after having a child that you didn't know before?
So one of the key things that I've learned is that I'm certainly not a finished piece. And what I mean by that is there is a lot of work that needs to be done, both physically and mentally. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. I'm not going to rush that though. I'm not going to rush that. I'm going to wait for those times. I'm going to take them in my stride and use that experience to put me and add to the best version of me. And I think that's the most important thing. The second thing is to not panic and not get stressed. The one thing that I've learned from being a dad is that if you panic and get stressed on every one of these situations that you come through with being a parent or just generally in life, you're going to be in a real difficult situation. You're going to end up with no hair, or you're going to end up with whatever, whatever the issue is, So I think the most important the most important thing here is to basically, when something happens in life, you need to be able to break it down into what it is, separate yourself from the emotions. Once you separate yourself from the emotions and break it down, you then formalize a strategy of how you're going to tackle it. And I think once you have that sort of solution design in place, right, you set you up nicely for most of the things that come your way. And if you don't have that as a parent, or if you don't have that before you've had a child, you will very quickly learn how to do it. Because your child is developing at 100 miles per hour. Every single day they're learning something new, right? So you have to be on your toes. You have to be able to adapt, to be able to facilitate that development and to be able to keep up with your child, because they're developing at a much faster rate than I am. So yeah, that's probably the second thing. And the third thing is the most important thing is to keep control of your mind, and to always do like a sanity check for yourself to make sure that you are first in a good place mentally, because then only you can be good to other people, in your family, in your network, whatever it is. So you need to make sure that you get number one right first, so you get your mental head right, and then going on from there, you then need to be able to help others and add value to the other people in your network to get them to that level and beyond.
Are these things that you've learned over time, from Lavia being born till now, or was it like a light bulb moment where you just came to a realization?
So I would say that I learned these before Navia was born, but these are heightened now that she has been born. So these are skills and behaviors that I sort of picked up along the way. Had the foundational knowledge of them. I wouldn't say that I'm at an expert level right now, but I would say that I'm a little bit higher than the foundation level.
Yeah.
With having Navia, because it's a steep learning curve. It's a steep learning curve, and I hope this podcast doesn't deter people from having children and going down that process, because whilst it's a steep learning curve, there's a huge amount of development there as a person, and that's the most important thing, is you develop into such a strong person. I'm in a much stronger position that I'm in now, before I had Navia. So I'm extremely thankful for the experiences that I've had, good and bad, and it certainly helped me to put me in a good position to tackle the future hurdles that will probably come my way.
Yeah. What's your I'm so intrigued, because obviously I'm not a parent, but that's why I have these questions that I can't ask anyone else, because none of my friends are parents either, obviously, except you. You're the only.
Cheers, Sam. Cheers. I thought I was your friend, mate. Cheers.
Not because he's a parent.
Well, no, that's what I thought. None of my friends are parents except you. That's what I'm saying. So you're the only one I can ask. So
yeah, I think it's a lot of it we won't know until we are. Obviously, that's why we're intrigued by it, and because only Ishan out of our friend group has experienced it, and we won't know until we have ourselves.
So, what's your biggest worry as a parent? What you worry? with your parent hat on, not with your son or husband or brother hat or anything like that, with your parent hat, what's your biggest concern? What's your biggest worry?
So when Navia was, this changed. Okay, this is developed over time, and this is actually a bigger question. You could do a whole podcast on this question alone, right? So, you know, for me, when Navia was first born, the first thing that was the most important thing for me was just to be the right dad, protect her, you know, make sure that she doesn't do anything that goes down the wrong path, make sure that she's doing everything in the right way, and to basically give her the best life that I possibly can, like every other parent, right? And when the child's first born, but over time, you kind of and again, this brings up another topic. You know, for me, when Navia was first born, people always ask me, "Do you want a boy or a girl?" Obviously, for me, before Navia was born, I had a very sort of traditional view. Oh, girls are gonna. I wanted a boy. I wanted to have the boy first. But you know, the girl, there's a lot of extra protection that comes there. But as a father, you know, you kind of, it's a big topic. But now, looking at it from another view, you know, it's amazing. It's amazing having a girl as a daughter, having a daughter, and there's the now issues that I'm sort of more focused on is to ensure that I don't have anyone coming in around her to stop her from being the best version of her. And I keep saying the best version of her because I'm a strong believer in that, is that I don't want the societal experiences to constrain her. You know what I mean? So as a girl, I don't want her to have to doing something because society wants her to do it. You know, I don't think that she should be at any sort of or be treated in any sort of way differently compared to a boy or any other person out there. And for me, it's for me to teach her what's right and wrong, but for her to also teach me what's right and wrong as well at the same time.
Yeah.
And to work together as a partnership to ultimately get the best out of her as a person.
That's a really amazing answer, actually. I've got another question though. I'm really sorry. I'm just throwing questions at you, man. But this one, I think this one's interesting. But I don't know. I hope everyone else does as well. So, culturally, there's a very typical way. By culturally, I mean because we're Asians. There's a very typical way girls are, let's say, traditionally viewed, or were viewed, are viewed, have been viewed. Any of those, right? All those thoughts that you thought before, again, using your culture hat or your tradition hat, having a daughter now, has your view changed on Asian females? Has anything changed when you think about, here's what I'm thinking, I'll give you an example. Here's what I'm thinking, right? Typically, girls stay at home, they do the cooking, cleaning, all these things. No one really used to like a girl who was career driven because they used to think that, oh, she's too much of a smarty pants. She thinks she knows what's best. She doesn't understand. She's not going to be on her hands and knees always just waiting for us to tell her everything to do. All these things that come with, which we spoke about with Com, obviously last week or the week before. Has your view on any of that changed from what it was originally? I don't know what it was originally, but has anything changed having a daughter?
I was going to say, I don't know whether you've spoken to Cormac before. Do you know who her mother is? Can you imagine if I said that to Cormac? Yeah, she's going to be in the kitchen cooking, cleaning. Cormac will be staring at me thinking, what the hell did you just say?
Yeah. I'll bet.
But my view has completely changed. I tell you why. Watching Navia as a person, it's kind of like looking at a mini version of Cormac.
Oh, interesting.
She is a mini version of Cormac. If you go to, for example, If you put her in a chair, okay, and you put her in a baby seat, and there's a plastic thing which goes on in front, which stops her from getting out, she will go crazy at that because she doesn't like being tied down.
Yeah.
She doesn't like the fact that we're closing her in.
Yeah.
So what she wants us to do is to take the plastic bit off, and she's basically saying to us, give me the autonomy to sit in my own chair. Don't constrain me in any way.
Yeah.
And these are signs which you pick up on. And for me, it's a lesson for me. It's a really big lesson, because I'd be the first to put my hand up and say, my views, obviously, what you mentioned before, they're not exactly like that, but my views were fairly traditional. And when I look at that now, I kind of think, very, very archaic sort of thinking. You shouldn't be thinking that sort of way. And when someone asks me now, my mum always mentions, oh, when Navia's husband comes and Navia's getting married and all that. And I say, no. Don't talk about marriage. Don't talk about wedding. Not because I'm coming over as a concerned dad, because she will do whatever she wants to do. She will flourish in whatever if she wants to be the top CEO in the world, okay, and not get married and not just live a complete solo life and do that, then I'm more than happy to do that. If she wants to get married at 22, if she wants to get married at 21, if she finds the right guy, I'm happy for her, because the one thing that I want her to do is I want her to flourish in any situation that she's in, and not have me bring my insecurities in to stop her from being the best version of her. And so for me now, I couldn't think of anything worse than constraining someone like Navia. The potential that she's got is phenomenal. Someone like me coming in, bringing in my barriers and constraints is only going to stop this person from her full potential.
Stunning.
So,
yeah.
Exactly. So I'm gonna come in. I'm gonna let her be her, because she's just perfect the way she is. So let her be her, and she's gonna be my teacher. I'm gonna be her student, right? And she's gonna come and teach me all these different things. And I think that my view on having a daughter now and being a parent is completely different. And again, it comes back to the point in having a partner like Komal, who's very sort of strong-minded, career-focused, very, she wants to do everything and anything, and she probably can do it as well. There's no doubt in that at all. And I think that having that drive, passion, skills, behavior, putting that around a child, it just allows them to, do whatever they want to do in life, without having me coming in with my traditional thoughts. Which doesn't help anyone,
It's sad when you see it, because like within our culture, typically that is like the mindset people have. Like if you look at the older generations, they restrain their daughters from pursuing their careers for following what they want to follow. So it's pretty amazing that you have that mindset, Ishan, and
it's
hopefully
crazy that by having a daughter, your opinion can change. Because your opinion or what you thought of a certain thing has been formed over the course of many years, right? Obviously, seeing things, hearing things, and whatnot, being from a particular background or a culture or a religion or an environment or whatever, all of these things form your opinion, right? It's amazing to see how one person, in this situation, is Navia, who is a baby who can't speak any words, who can't do any actions, who really, let's be honest, as a baby, can't really do an awful lot except just this, can change your whole perspective on a certain thing which you thought you knew for like 25 years. You know what I'm saying? So that aspect of it is amazing. And obviously, I know, like, we're religion-wise, we're not from the same religion, but I'm just going to like draw on something here that's from Islam. And it just reminded me of you saying that. It reminded me, like, there's one saying that basically says, like, blessed is there is not a man more blessed than the one that has 3 daughters. And it really, like, kind of like brings it home. Obviously, you talking about what it's like having a daughter. You know what I'm saying? No, it's amazing. Like, how one singular person who can't actually do anything can completely change your mind.
Changes a man. And we all know Ishan's a very strong-minded individual.
Yeah. No, 100%.
And again, yeah, it brings you back to the point. Pick your top 5. Nabia's in my top 5. Look, she's changing me. She's teaching me. She's giving me a different view of life, which again is very different to how it was when I was 22-year-old. And I know, Saf, why you asked me this question, because I was very traditional, in my thoughts, very traditional before. And so, it just shows you how experiences, life changes. And the one thing that we have to always remember is that we will always constantly keep changing. And no one needs to be scared of change. You've done it all your life. From when you were a microscopic particle, right? You've always changed. In fact, the one thing that you should be scared of is staying the same, because you've never stayed the same.
Yes.
So you've always changed in your life from the moment from your inception to where you are now, to when you take your last breath, and even beyond that, depending on what your beliefs are, right? You are constantly changing. So don't be fearful of change.
Yeah.
Not at all. Be fearful of being stagnant and being the same.
Yeah.
You've never done that before in your life, and when people say to me, we're creatures of habit, or humans are habitual creatures, no, it doesn't flow with
That's
me.
how you know not to surround yourself with those people. If someone says that, I'm straight away saying, yeah, see you later.
Yeah. Oh, and I can kind of like, to echo what you say and like kind of back that up a bit. So the whole creatures of habit thing, like on some things, by saying a creature of habit, I take it quite in the sense of we like eating food at the same time, perhaps every day. We like to go to bed every day. But I'd say that's kind of as far as it stretches. And the evidence I would say for that is, if we were true creatures of habit, like really and truly, why is everyone going mad over lockdown? Because we've been in lockdown on and off mostly for the last year, doing the same thing over and over again. Does that not epitomize creatures of habit? It does, right? So why is everyone hating it so much if that were true?
Yeah.
No, I'm saying it's being a creature of habit is not a true thing, because if it were, everyone would be absolutely loving lockdown by now. So the creature of habit thing, I think, stretches as far as we like to eat at the same time every day. We like to go to bed at the same time every day. But that's kind of the extent, I think, that it goes.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm quite conscious of the time. I've been keeping an eye on the clock. We've been talking for like an hour and a half, probably more.
Really? That's
Bro, that has flown by. Honestly, that has absolutely flown by.
We don't have a timer on the screen. I just looked at the clock and I was just like, we started at a certain time. It's like, yeah, this is probably gonna be the longest episode. Yeah, I reckon.
Well, to be honest, like, it should be the longest episode. You got a VIP guest on and all that sort of thing,
You know what's so funny is that Ishan's initials are IP. We literally just need to add the V on.
Oh yeah.
No, but to be honest, I would definitely say this is probably your best podcast that I've seen so far.
It'll be interesting to see the amount of listens that it gets. Although saying that,
this is where we won't put any marketing material.
the listens part comes on, like, there's many different aspects of like who listens to what, how many people listen to it, etc., etc., etc. And there are certain times, I'll be honest, me and Sully get very lazy when it comes to the podcast. For example, we didn't do one last week.
Yeah.
I'm going to blame lockdown just simply because there's not an awful lot going on. We like doing it. Our whole vibe is doing it
in person. Yeah, we don't like. I don't like. Obviously, in this instance, because of lockdown, we have no choice. But yeah, normally we do it in person. Do you know what I mean? It's a different level of conversation.
100%.
Yeah. I think on a more serious note, and I'm not just trying to sort of big up the podcast or anything like that, not at all. But I think what you guys are doing with this, I think, is phenomenal.
Thank you,
in the world where everyone's sort of stuck indoors, they can't go out much. They don't have much human interaction. You know, we're left with just using these virtual platforms for us to have conversations now. And so having an hour and a half or an hour or 45 minutes of listening to someone who you can really relate to, for me anyway, I've listened to all of the podcasts. So for me, it's something that I can certainly relate to, and it's something that I like listening to, you know, whilst we're all going through this tough time. So even this podcast, if there's anyone out there who this helps or this takes them through a tough time, then fantastic. You know, we've spent an hour and a half doing something that's really meaningful to someone. And, you know, even if people want to reach out, you know, reach out. Don't be scared to ask questions. Don't be scared to you know, help be the best version of yourself. And I think that's what we should call this podcast, be the best version of yourself. Because I think that is ultimately what everyone should do. There we go. I'm giving away everything. Here, aren't I?
The name of the episode and everything, man. We should be a regular person. Might as well. Well, hopefully, thank you, Ish. That's really kind of you to say.
Yeah, no, really nice, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah, much appreciate that. Hopefully, we can kind of get to do one in person again. You know, like when all of this stuff is over and we can go back to relative normality. Yeah, it would be great to do one in person, I think, for sure.
Just one thing though, because I don't want to leave the listeners without covering one subject, because we didn't cover it off, and that's our theory on how Solly behaves. So mine and Saf's theory on this is because we've never seen Solly, like, you know, go crazy at all. So we think that Solly probably once a quarter, maybe once a month, if it's a really bad, if it's once a blue moon. There's even a theory out there that Solly's part werewolf. So
you and your, like, how on earth do you come up with these theories?
Because every human, and no matter if you're a monk who's completely Zen or if whatever you are, okay, needs to have a time where they just get a bit frustrated, right? And we think that you go into the room or any room in your house, and to be honest, the camera is only on one part of your house. We haven't seen the other part. God knows, it might be part way through construction after you've dealt with it, okay? But we think that you go into a room and just smash it up like mad, just to release your frustration. Don't know when you do it, once a month, once a quarter.
Do you know what that room is?
Is that true?
Do you know what it is? That room you described, you're right, I go in there, I smash up. It's the gym.
Oh.
What? You only go to the gym once every 4 weeks?
No, regular, mate.
Regular, mate. Yeah, we
I hope you don't. It's
lockdown. It's lockdown. It's very true.
Our theory was that the way that happens is so there's a full moon every month, and on that full moon, Solly transforms into a werewolf, and that whole night is spent just venting his frustration. Like maybe he's like clawing down a couple trees, or eating a couple of people, or doing something, and then he just wakes up the following morning in like the middle of nowhere, and he's like, "Oh, it's happened again."
All I'm going to say is we'll never know.
We'll never know.
For all the Harry Potter fans out there, he is the equivalent to Professor Lupin. That's going to get you some major views and major comments, right? If you think that Solly is Lupin, comment below. All right, just don't even write anything. Just write Lupin.
Oh, yeah, nice. Do that. Let's do that. Let's see if we can. Let's see how many people might agree with us. There is potential that Solly might actually be a werewolf.
Just never know.
Never know. He said
Never
it.
know.
Right, Ish, thank you so much for all your time. Yeah, it's literally been like, an hour and a half, I think.
In total, close to, like,
pleasure.
obviously we're recorded from a certain point, so it's probably us just chatting is probably more close to 2 hours, but it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah. So yeah, again, Ish, thank you very much for your time. Hopefully we can have you on in person when it goes back to normal, because that'd be really, really cool.
I'd love to, yeah.
Everyone, thank you for listening. Episode 15 or 16, I don't even know. I don't really know.
15, I think.
15,
Yeah.
Just
15.
keep doing it for however long anyone wants to listen to it. And yeah, hope you enjoy. Until next time.
Yeah. Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.